Hey everyone, welcome back to the Race 5 Smokehouse and Grill, and today we are taking these pork butts and this brisket and making some awesome Texas hot links. I've been wanting to do this one for a long time, so let's go. So today we're making hot links, and I've been trying to find a recipe for hot links forever. Hot links to me are the epitome of sausage for barbecue. Any good barbecue place has a great hot link. So I want to be able to make hot links. So in my searches, I came across Smokin Joe's Pit Barbecue. He has an amazing YouTube channel, and anybody that follows barbecue on YouTube has to know Smokin Joe's Pit Barbecue. I am using his recipe for hot links, and I'm sure this is going to be awesome. He uses a split between pork and beef, which is what I'm going to do as well. I got a choice brisket here that I'm going to chop up, and a couple pork butts. This is about 18 pounds of pork butt, and this is about 13 and a half pounds of brisket, but we got to get ratios right and everything else. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to chunk these pieces of meat up into strip that could go into my grinder, my meat grinder. I know that pork butts typically are in that 70-30 lean to fat ratio, 80-20 lean to fat ratio. So we really don't need to worry about finding out how much fat's really in here. Plus all this intramuscular fat's hard to decipher. With the brisket, however, there's big chunks of fat that we could take off and really get to that lean. So with this, I'm really going to try to come up with about a 70-30 lean to fat ratio. I'm going to put these pork butts to the side here. And the first thing I'm going to do is tear into this brisket. Again, this is a choice brisket, which is perfect for sausage because you're going to grind it up and all that fat's going to stay in there and get added with all the other ingredients, and that's going to turn out great. So I'm going to open this up, try to remove as much fat as possible and try to get all the lean to one side, and then I'm going to weigh it and try to get about 70-30, and then I'm going to break down the pork butt. Then we're going to see our weight, and that's when we can calculate all our ingredients. So let's rip this apart. So this is a pretty fatty brisket here. Some of this just wants to come off already. Like I said, let's just get this all out of here. Now, Smokin Joe uses all his brisket trimmings and pork trimmings to make these sausages. I unfortunately didn't have any, so I went and bought fresh meat for this. But if you do keep your trimmings and extra meat that you trim off, now's the perfect time to use them. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to get that idea. So you know you have the proper meat to fat ratio, lean to fat ratio. But then when you're making your ingredients, your spices that you're going to add to this in a little bit, you'll know your exact weight because sausages are pretty exact science here. Let's cut this in half here. Work a little easier. Okay, we have our brisket separated with our lean and our fat. Now you can see that there's a lot more fat on this brisket than the lean, which is good to demonstrate that, you know, a brisket could possibly be 60% fat and 40% lean. So that's why it's not good necessarily to just throw it all in there like you would a pork butt. So what I'm gonna do right now is I have my digital scale out. I'm gonna weigh out all the lean, and then I'm gonna calculate another 30% weight of fat to throw on top of it. So let's see how much weight we have with the lean. So we're right at 6 pounds. Now to get 30% of that, we're looking at about 2 pounds. So we're gonna add roughly 2 pounds or so of fat, and that should give us our 70%, 30%. 1.5 pounds would be 25%. So let's add that on here because there is still some fat on here. So we're gonna add 25%, and that should give us a nice 70-30 mix. So we're gonna bring this scale up to 7.5 pounds roughly. It may, so between 7.5 and 8, and that'll give us a good fat to lean ratio. Here we go. We got our 7.8. You know what? I'm gonna add just a little bit more. There you go, exactly 8 pounds. So we're right around that ratio that we want. Next step is I'm gonna throw this batch right into the freezer. Let this start to solidify, because when you're putting fat through a mixer and it's warm, it could start to smear and not blend through and get real messy. So you wanna get these somewhat frozen so they're easier to go through your blender. So I'm going to go throw this in the freezer right now, and then we are going to tear apart some pork butts. Be right back. So we have the beef sitting in the freezer right now. Now it's time to cut up some pork butt. And with the weight of the brisket being at 8 pounds total, you want roughly a 50-50 mix between pork and beef. If it leans one way or the other, that's okay. If it's 60-40, 40-60, it's okay. The whole pack was like 18.5 pounds, almost 19 pounds, so I'm only using the bigger of the two butts. I don't know what this weighs yet. After I trim this up or chop it up and get that bone out of there and all the meat off the bone, that's when I'm gonna weigh it, and that's when we're gonna calculate our spice ratios. Before we do anything else, we need to get this hacked up and all that meat off that bone. So this, it's simple. It doesn't matter which way you cut because it's all going to get ground up. And these bones can be kind of tricky, so if you just want to find it and work your way around it, feel free. We're working our way down to that bone. You can see the bone right in here, so we're just going to kind of keep working our way around there. Try to get as much meat out of here as possible. And there we have it. We got the blade bone pretty much as far down as we're gonna get. So we're gonna keep that to the side. Might use it for some stock, might get rid of it, not sure yet. Now I'm just gonna trim these up a little bit. I'm gonna finish trimming this up. Once it's all trimmed up into cubes, I'm gonna get it on the scale, see how much meat we have here. That way we can calculate our spices once this is in the freezer. So I'm gonna finish this up and we'll be back when we're weighing it out. Okay, we have our pork cubed up, weighed out. I got right at 8.94 pounds. So adding that with the brisket, we're right at 16.94 pounds. Now knowing this is gonna help us calculate all the spices we're gonna use. So I'm gonna finish on this sheet. I'm gonna write down all the percentages and all the amount that we're gonna add to this mixture. Right now I'm gonna get this in the freezer as well to let this solidify up a little bit more. That way it's easy to grind. In the meantime, I'm gonna go calculate all the spices and put that together, and we'll be back when it's time to start grinding and mixing. So the pork and brisket has been in the freezer for roughly 45 minutes, almost an hour. I went ahead and weighed out all these ingredients, and here are the ingredients we are using. You can see on the left, it lists the name of the ingredient. In the middle, it's the percentage that we're going to be using. And on the end, it's the total grams. All of this is in grams. We converted the brisket and pork pounds into grams. The brisket and pork combined is 7,683.85 grams. Kosher salt, we want 1.1%, black pepper 0.7%, garlic powder 0.6%. So we just multiplied the 7683.85 total grams of the meat times the 1.1% for the recipe of kosher salt. We got 84.5 grams of kosher salt. We did that down the line. I'm gonna put this up again just so if you guys wanna pause it, take a screenshot, whatever you need. But here's the recipe I used with the percentages. Smokin Joe's didn't have the percentages on his, so I went ahead and I figured it out so we can have a nice reference when we go to use it again. This is ready. I've got all our spices ready. Now it's time to bust out the grinder, get the meats out of the freezer, and start grinding this up. This is where it really starts coming together. Let's get this set up, and we'll be back when it's time to start grinding up some meat. Okay, we have it all set up. We had all the internal parts of this sitting in the freezer overnight, which is going to keep the meat nice and cold as it's coming through. Again, it's to keep that fat from melting and smearing all over the place. You do want kind of chunky fat in there to keep the sausage moist as you're cooking it. I'm gonna flip back and forth, putting pork and beef in here just to get it all ground together. Once this is done grinding, we'll add the seasonings. Let's get grinding. Pro tip, as you're entering your last bit of meat, follow it up with some ice cubes. That ice cubes will push the residual meat that is in the chamber, it'll push that out. Otherwise, it's gonna stay in here blending with nothing to grab and push behind it. So you're using that ice to push it through, and it's okay to use ice because it keeps the meat cold, that fat cold, and it still puts a little water in there, which is okay because you're wanting some moisture in here after we add all those dry ingredients. So let's put this ice through. This is all ground up beautifully. Now we're just gonna add our dry spices over the top of this, and then we're gonna get in there with our hands. I don't have a meat grinder or a meat mixer, so I gotta use these as my meat mixers. So let's get this added. Get this salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder. You got the milk, mustard seeds, cayenne, smoked paprika, and the curing salt. Now we're gonna mix. At some point, we may need to add some liquid to this. That's where Smokin Joe used a Lone Star beer. I'm just gonna go see what kind of beer we have in the fridge, and then we'll use that. But you really wanna get this nice and mixed. We'll be back when it's totally mixed up, and we'll show you the consistency you're looking for, because you want it to be sticky and tacky. I'll show you what it looks like as soon as we're done mixing. Now, one of the things I forgot to mention is that I am using natural hog casings. I've had these rinsing in some warm water for about the last hour or so. I've changed the water a couple of times. These come packed in a salt brine, and you got to get that salt off of there so it can rehydrate and become pliable, so you can put it on the stuffer. You know, they become easier to use that way. Here is the mixed sausage, and this is the consistency you want. You want it to stick. That means all those enzymes and everything are melding together. That's gonna be perfect. So what we're gonna do is get this stuffer packed with some sausage here. Get as much in here as you can, but you also wanna get that packed in there so there's no air spots, air pockets, because you don't want any air pockets going into your casings while you're packing it. You get that nice and packed in there. Get that loaded up. I have it secured to the countertop here with a couple of grips. Now when you're using these casings, you want to rinse both inside and out. So you're going to find the opening, kind of stretch it out a little bit and run some water through there, and that'll rinse the inside out as well as the outside that's been rinsed out. I'm going to set that off to the side here. Now I'm going to go right into a pan here. Now this makes a little mess, but it is what it is. You're making sausage. This isn't a pretty job here. I'm going to tie this end off here. Get that tight. Now you're set, ready to start cranking. Mine is a crank one, so you lower it. I don't have a foot pedal or any of that. Now a lot of times I'll just go a full coil and then portion them out here in a second. I'll show you that. This is just easier for me. Tie that off. Got our first coil done. Now I'm gonna go ahead and make these into about 7-inch links. So first one we're gonna give a twist here. Next one we're gonna give a pinch and then move on, and then give another twist and move on. I got marks on here that show 7 inches. This one was a little loose, so we're gonna tie her up a little bit at the end here. I'll snip these ends in a little bit, make them nice and pretty. I'm gonna go ahead, finish casing the rest of these, and I'll talk more about what we have to do when this is all done. These sausages are cased up and looking great. Only thing we have to do now is wait. We're gonna let these set out, and after a little while I'm gonna put them in the fridge just to let them dry out. You want this case to dry out for a couple reasons. One, so the twist you made when you snip them to make individual links, the sausage won't come flying out, it'll stay closed. Another, you want this case to get dried out is so you get that nice snap, that nice sausage bite. So we're gonna let this set out and rest, dry out for a few hours, and then after that we're gonna go throw these on the smoker and smoke them low and slow until they get a nice color and are ready to be pulled off. So we'll see you back when it's time to throw these on the smoker. These sausages are ready to go on. Today we are using the Char-Griller XD Grand Champ because we're gonna be doing a cold smoke on these, which means first 2 hours, 150 degrees, third hour, 160 degrees, and the fourth hour, 175 degrees before we pull it off and put it into an ice bath. We're using Jealous Devil lump charcoal, start a nice coal bed in which after that's going, we're gonna add some pieces of oak. That's gonna give it a really nice smoke flavor, but we're only gonna use small pieces because again, we're trying to keep that temp below 160 for the first few hours in order not to really melt that fat that's inside those sausages. Let's get this fired up, and once it's up to temp, we're gonna put these sausages on. Our grill's up to that magic 150-ish range. Right now it's reading about 154. I'm gonna get these hot links on the smoker so we can get them going. Let me show you the size of the chunks we're using here. This is all we're using, about this size, and it's going to keep our smoker at that low and slow temp. Let's get these sausages on. I've got these 3 little nubbin ones at the end here. These are going to be the ones where I'm testing temperature later, so I don't ruin any of the nice bigger ones here. So we're going to put these on back over here. And these are the ones that we're going to temp probe as the time comes. These are all on. Now time to maintain that temperature for about 2 hours before we kick it back up to about 160. Then final hour 175. Let's close it up and get these smoking. These hot links have been smoking now for 4 hours. It's time to take them off and put them into an ice bath. As you can see, I have rotated these around on the grill just because there are hot spots, and you want to get all these sausages up to temp. So they're all at about 145 degrees internal. Now it's time to stop that cooking process with this ice bath. So let's go put that together and get these in that ice bath. These hot links are done. They're up to temperature about 145 internal. Now it's time to stop the cooking process. We're gonna be dumping these into a cold water bath, which I have right here. Then we're gonna add some ice on top of it to make sure that cooking stops. This not only stops the cooking process, but it'll give it a little wash from any potential soot or anything that got on there during the smoking process. Those are all in the water. Let's get that ice in there. Let that mix around. Now we're gonna let this sit for about a half an hour or so. Let this really cool down. I'm gonna put the lid on it. When we come back, I'm gonna throw a couple back on the smoker, cook them up, get them up to about 165 degrees and eat some, try them out. So we'll be back when we're putting these on the grill. Hot links are done, looking fantastic. We're gonna slice these up and try them. Just like Smokin Joe's, you can play basketball with these things. They're so firm, but they're ready to explode. So we're gonna go ahead and slice this open, check out the inside, and give it a taste. I don't know if you can see that. It's so juicy. Only thing to do is try. That's a Texas hot link. Great flavor, great texture with that natural casing, good smoke flavor through there. Got a little bit of spice behind it. This is delicious. Joe at Smokin Joe's, thank you so much for this recipe. I'm gonna keep making this one. This is delicious. Bit of a process, but well worth it. Give it a try. This is delicious. Everything you can ask for in a sausage. These are beautiful. Look at how gorgeous these are. That great red look. These are great. I'm glad I have so many of them. They're gonna last a while. If you like what we did here, thumbs up, hit that subscribe, and we'll see you again. Take care, everybody. Peace.